In this video, I'll be going over some IB questions regarding hormones and reproduction. I made a series of videos explaining all of these topics, so make sure to go check them out before you go and do these IB questions, otherwise you may not understand the answers. I will try and explain the answers as well as I could, but I can't go into that much detail, otherwise the video would be too long, so make sure to see these videos that I made before on all of these topics, including the menstrual cycle, the hormones, male, female hormones, the introduction, all of that. Make sure to check that out. That would make this, you understanding these questions a lot easier. So first off, let's check out the first question. So this is a multiple choice question, so give it a go. I'll open it up. So right now, just take a pause and try it out for yourself. So which hormone promotes the thickening of the endometrium and also inhibits the hormone that promotes the development of the follicle, stimulating the follicle wall in the corpus luteum? So yeah, so as you can see, this is a multiple choice question, and it's a genuine question from the IB. So the questions that I have here will be in various difficulties. Some you might find easier than others, but by no means that I pick easy questions or anything like that. I just pick random ones. So let's go back to the question. So normally what you want to do is you want to eliminate 3 incorrect ones, or maybe you just know if you don't know the answer, you can eliminate 3 ones that you think are incorrect. Or if you just know what the answer is, make sure you circle that answer, whatever it is, A, B, C, or D, but also make sure to check that the other ones are wrong, because sometimes the IB can do some tricks in their wording and that might trip you up. So which hormone promotes the thickening of the endometrium? So we know, based on the videos I made, that 2 hormones are involved in this, both progesterone and estrogen. They are made and they have multiple functions in the menstrual cycle, one of which is to thicken the endometrium, which is basically to prepare the uterus to receive the egg. So since there are 2 hormones, we know the next piece of information should cancel out one of these. So both of them promote the thickening of the endometrium. But one of these also inhibits the hormone that promotes the follicle development, promotes the development of the follicle into the corpus luteum. So progesterone, it inhibits, basically it's the hormone that both does this, but it also inhibits FSH. And FSH is the hormone, this hormone, that is responsible for making the new egg. So it will kind of develop the corpus luteum, because the corpus luteum is a thing that will basically, after redeveloped, contain the egg. So progesterone is the answer, because estrogen has no business to do with the corpus luteum. Now next, so here's a diagram of the male genitalia. So I didn't make a video on how to do these, but I have an image above that I will show you just in case you would like to know. So this question is saying, which structures are indicated by the letters X, Y, and Z? So this is just the sake of memorizing. Basically, I'll go up right now. Actually, I'll just do it right here. So basically, the process that happens for you to understand is the sperm is made here in the testes, and then it's stored here in the Z. Then afterwards, it is brought up through this pipe, and you can see it follows and eventually will come down here and out, right? But before it does that, the sperm here is mixing. It's going to mix with other things that is made in Y. That is made in Y and also made here. So these 2 things make products that will mix with the sperm to produce something called semen, right? Because sperm alone is not semen, so it will make a lot of other things that will mix with it and eventually make semen. Also, this big part right here is the bladder. So they both come out of the same hole, so both your sperm and your semen will come out the same hole, as well as your urine. They both come out the same pipe. So at different times, the urine will cause from the bladder, urine will be released, and at different times, the sperm will be released. Okay, so now it's back to the question. So what is Z? Z here is basically called the epididymis. No easy way to remember that, it's just sake of memorizing, it's called the epididymis. X is easier to remember because, so at this point, the answer could be both A and C. So let's go to X. So X is the sperm duct. And that makes sense because sperm is made here, it's stored here, and then transported here. So X makes sense that it's a sperm duct. And another name for that, I'll show you above the sperm duct, because that might trip you up with that, is called the Vas Deferens. It's both the sperm duct and the Vas Deferens. So don't be confused with that. So now at this point, we know it could be A or C still, because both X is both here, sperm duct, epididymis. So right now, Y is going to be the thing that's going to distinguish this. So Y is pretty much, is it the seminal vesicle or the prostate gland? And you can see here, seminal vesicle is a good name, good way to remember it, because semen, it helps to make semen. It's going to make stuff that's going to join with the sperm to make semen. So that's Y, you see, seminal vesicle. And below this, that part that also makes stuff is called the prostate gland. So right here, prostate gland, seminal vesicle, they both contribute. Just remember the seminal vesicle is above. So therefore we can see this one's answer is A. What is a negative feedback mechanism in the menstrual cycle? So take a look at this and try it yourself. So follicle stimulating hormone inhibits estrogen. This is not true because the follicle stimulating hormone actually, follicle stimulating hormone, so FSH and estrogen have a positive feedback relationship. FSH will make the follicle, which will make estrogen, and this will be a cycle. It will make more and more, so that's actually positive feedback. Estrogen inhibits luteinizing hormone. This could be true because as estrogen drops, I'll show you a graph up here. And watch my videos to understand what negative feedback actually means. But here, basically, you can see estrogen, here it drops, and right after it drops, like a little bit later, you'll see LH also drops. So you can see LH drop because of estrogen, and that's a negative feedback. Negative feedback is like reducing something, reducing the process of something. So in that case, it would be, this one would be correct. Now in a situation like this where you know it's correct, make sure to go check that these C and D is incorrect to make sure about your answer. So estrogen inhibits follicle stimulating hormone. Again, same as A, they kind of work together in a positive feedback mechanism, so this would not be correct. D, progesterone inhibits estrogen. This is just not true. They don't have any kind of relationship with each other. Progesterone, on the other hand, does inhibit FSH. So if it said here progesterone inhibits FSH, it would have been correct, but it has no business to do with estrogen. So therefore, we know B is correct. Last multiple choice question here. So which two hormones promote thickening of the endometrium? So remember before, in our first question, that was like the first clue. Which hormone promotes the thickening of the endometrium? And I said, okay, both progesterone and estrogen does that. So, but the next part of the question will cause one of them to be eliminated, right? So in this case, this question would be easier that we just saw this one because it simply brings up just the first part. And we know it's progesterone and estrogen. It doesn't make it more complicated by introducing a new piece of information. Therefore, we know the answer is progesterone, and estrogen, because these have nothing to do with the endometrium. Now here is one question that is considered a long answer question. It's 8 marks on the IB. I just want to walk you through the actual answers that they have. You can try it yourself first, see how many points you can get. But this is just me presenting you the answers of how the IB wants it, because the IB is very specific in their answers sometimes. So even what you write that may be correct in your opinion, the IB may not even want to see that. So make sure when you do past paper, make sure you do a lot of past paper questions, because your teacher will grade you based off the IB mark scheme, not based on the teacher's opinion. So make sure you do a lot of practice questions, look at their mark schemes, compare with your answers, and make sure you write what the IB wants, okay? So let's try this one. Outline the roles of the hormones in the menstrual cycle. So make sure first to check out my video on this menstrual cycle, because I explain it in a lot of detail, a lot of images, so I make it very visual, so hopefully you understand. But now I'll go over this, and basically I want to show you how easy it is to get 8 marks on this kind of question, because I'll show you how many available points there are. So right now, This is the answers. Don't focus on all of them at once now. Just take a look. Basically, you can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's 14 possible marks to get. Okay, so you can realize 8 is actually so little that they're asking for, which means that even not knowing everything, you can get easily full marks on this question. Okay, that's how you got to think about these questions. Never think about these long answer questions as only having 8 marks. There is always about almost twice as many options, possible answers. So let's go over this. And basically, if you don't understand every single point, don't worry about that. Just pick your favorite 8, because your teacher will look at your points and tick it if it matches one of these points. So pick the 8 that you maybe understand, because then if you write them down, you're correct. But I recommend that maybe you memorize 9 more than the recommended answers, because sometimes the mark scheme will change a little bit and they will not include one of these points. So if you have 9 at least, write them all down. And in case one of them is not considered according to the IB mark scheme, at least you had an extra one, so you'll still get your 8 points. So basically write as much as you can, okay? Because all the mark schemes are very similar, but sometimes 1 point exists in that mark scheme and then next year it doesn't exist. So make sure you're aware of that. So we know the first process is FS, and they tell this in order, by the way, the menstrual cycle. So it's basically in order. It's not just random points. So first we know FSH is released from the pituitary gland to stimulate your follicle to grow, right? This one makes sense in my opinion, because that's very important. It's the thing that starts the making of the egg. Then oocytes, sometimes they do this, they give you 2 names, oocytes or egg. Oocytes you learn in HL bio, but it just means egg in the scientific manner, so just ignore that and just think about egg if you're SL. So the egg cells mature. Again, this seems like something obvious, but you will get a point if you write it. So don't think that egg cells mature is implied in this answer. It's not, so be very specific. That'd be another point. Cells of growing follicle produce estrogen. This is true. When the follicle is developing, it produces estrogen because estrogen will have a positive feedback relationship with FSH to make the egg develop faster. Next, estrogen signals the endometrium lining of the uterus to thicken. So estrogen helps with the development of the endometrium, and we saw this in our multiple choice questions. Which 2 hormones promote thickening of the endometrium? Estrogen is one of them, so that's absolutely correct. Causes the final maturation of the follicle. In my opinion, this one I wouldn't have said, because I don't really understand what they mean by this one, so let's pretend that you also don't get this, and you'll see that getting 8 is still very easy. So high levels of estrogen stimulate secretion of LH. Yes, we know eventually estrogen there's a lot of it is made, and when it peaks, LH is released, because when estrogen peaks, it means that the egg is finished developing, and LH is then required because LH will cause the egg to be released so that fertilization can occur. LH spike will stimulate ovulation. This is basically, ovulation means release of the egg. So again, it's kind of redundant, but if you say both of these, you'll get a point. LH stimulates follicle to develop into corpus luteum. So we know that after the egg is released, the follicle that had the egg will now be empty, and LH will basically allow the follicle to be developed into the corpus luteum and regenerated. So it's going to recycle it basically. Now the corpus luteum will secrete progesterone, because progesterone will have a negative feedback relationship with FSH. So it will inhibit FSH to make any more eggs, because right now 1 egg was already released, and if the body makes another egg, it means you're gonna have more than 1 kid at once, and that's not what you want. So progesterone is made by the corpus luteum to prevent another egg from being made. And also progesterone does similar to estrogen, and it helps with the maintenance of the endometrium, so the lining of the uterus. And say the egg does not meet the sperm, then the corpus luteum will disintegrate and remake itself. That's the thing that will become the follicle. And then progesterone and estrogen will drop to restart the cycle, because if progesterone is present, we know an egg can't be made. Therefore, for an egg to be made, progesterone must drop so that FSH can now make a new egg. So you can see this is you can get so many points from writing all these things. So if you don't understand all these points anyways, You should, but if you don't understand every single one of them, it does not matter because you can still easily get 8 points. So I hope you learned something in this video about how the IB wants kind of wants you to answer questions, and that it's not, the big questions are really not as hard as you think. Even if you don't write all the details, you can easily still get 8 marks. And watch out for the multiple choice questions. They can be tricky in their wording, but I hope you learned something in this video.